All right, now to our next conversation that also impacts Africa. At this point, we see Africa's digital economy that's surging, now valued at approximately $180 billion and projected to exceed $300 billion by 2030. A transformation driven by booming mobile penetration, fintech innovation, and supportive policy frameworks and governments and multilateral institutions that are taking action at this point. Well, the African Union's Malabo Convention, in force since June 2023, lays the continental foundation for cybersecurity and data protection, reflecting a shift from fragmented rules to harmonized governance. Joining us to unpack this now, we have Justina Nnam Oha. She's the CEO Digital Equity Africa, joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Laddie, for having me. It's good to be here.
Good to have you, and definitely I see the rains didn't stop you.
Absolutely not. Nothing can stop us.
Fantastic. So, with what we're seeing, so far with the growth of artificial intelligence, now you can't talk about anything without talking about AI, at this point. Talk to me about what you're seeing, so far with the growth of artificial intelligence, on the continent, and what you're expecting.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for having me once more. I mean, Africa's digital economy is no longer a cliche, right? It's literally the frontier for our next growth wave, right? In order to grow as a continent, we have to factor in all of the key players that are enabling the digital economy, one of which is infrastructure. We also have their talent, right? And access to digital services. And just going from the top, if you think about infrastructure on its own, Africa lays today on a deficit of over 100 billion in infrastructure investment. If these infrastructures are not in place, people and citizens of the continent are not able to be participatory in the digital economy. I personally believe that AI, or the adoption of AI, the widespread adoption of AI on the continent, is one of the ways that we're going to enable more digital inclusion on the continent. Recently, we gathered over 5,000 people at Landmark at a conference, Kids Tech Fest, right? It was parents, it was educators, it was children. And what was the message? The time is now. Digital services are no longer for the elites. I guess the conversation now is how can we adopt this for everyday people? How can we adopt that for the growing pipeline, our children? But again, just speaking broadly to the conversations around like digital infrastructure, if you look at that deficit that is on the table, over $100 billion in value on the continent, it's not something that only the government can solve, right? It's not a problem that, local or, regional budgets within government institutions can solve. And this is a call really for more public-private sector partnerships. And in doing this also, for both hands to shake, the private sector also needs to feel comfortable working with the government in bringing about this transformation. So what are the policies that can de-risk investment for?
Right, I'm talking about policies, at this point. There's also, that regulation. There's been so much talk, even the other economies now, about how to regulate, artificial intelligence.
That's correct.
What's the conversation like here?
Well, it's an emerging space, right? So honestly, there is no government or institution that has figured out artificial intelligence. 5 years ago, it was just a buzzword, but today we hear it everywhere. So it's an emerging space, right? But there are key things to look at when you look at the adoption of artificial intelligence. Number one is safety, because with the exposure of any digital asset comes cyber risk and safety issues. Those are some of the things that we treated during the conference that we had. Like, what does it mean to safeguard people and children? Because with any digital proliferation, there is also like a backdoor that is opened where people are now exposed to risk. There's a lot of conversations going on within the local government space. When I say local, I mean Nigeria and on the continent level, to sort of develop framework for keeping people safe. If you look at artificial intelligence as a whole, as a continent, it is as though we're playing catch-up, because initially it wasn't built for us. And so there's a lot of stimulation also going on the continent to have more participatory, outlook to it. we're going to have to train this model to understand our own context. There's an African context out there, which is mostly lacking. While my team and I were researching for the projects that we're working on and the conference series for children, we found that a lot of prompts that you give didn't give back within the African context. And so I see that there's a lot of conversations happening in silos on how this can change, both on the private sector and the public sector level. But what would be interesting is for the harmonization of that to occur, and then we can move forward as a continent.
Right. Now, you did talk about the fest you had earlier, and trained about 5,000 kids on artificial intelligence. And do you think there's a risk that we might get to a point where we rely too much on artificial intelligence that brings down or reduces natural intelligence? Is there a risk for that?
Absolutely not. And I think and this is why we're having these conversations, right? Lagos was our first stop. We're going to go to other cities, Abuja, Kano, and other cities to host similar conferences. And what the message here is, there is a safe way to adopt AI, either for a child or for an adult. Take, for example, if a child prompts ChatGPT or the Pythagoras theorem assignment, it's going to give that child all of the answers without necessarily walking them through the steps. And then we're now missing like the elements of hard work and the rudiments of character building, which is what we all went through in those difficult exams when we're soaking our legs in water.
To solve for X,
absolutely.
Solve for Y.
So the thinking behind it is what builds character and intelligence. That is why we're sitting here and we're able to concentrate and have this conversation. We didn't have things passed down to us. But they are safe digital tools, AI-enabled, that support children's learning, right, in a way that still stimulates their journey of discovery. And that's why we went live with an online AI learning community on that day and an LLM for kids called Board AI. So we did a live demo on stage, and the prompts don't give you the answers. They walk you through the steps. But if parents don't know this, by the way, parents, if you're not teaching your kids to use AI the right way, they are doing it the wrong way. They are using your chat accounts and getting stuff done. And so what we're saying is that the face of parenting has changed, right? Digital parenting is now a thing. And every parent needs to pay attention to those. You don't shut the door, but you have to hold the hand of the child and safely guide them to be able to navigate in a way that doesn't shut down their development process. If you're going to prompt, it's all prompts, right? If you're going to prompt chat or any tool to create beautiful art for you, if you don't know the technique to ask it to add, maybe the brush stroke or the additional light effect, how are you going to prompt it?
Descriptive.
Absolutely. It's based on what you feel that you would get back. So what is then the balance, right? We are preparing our children for relevance, or global relevance, to power the workforce of the future. So they have to know about these tools, but how then do we create the balance? That's why we've created the platform for the conversations, the conference series, the online learning community, Future Minds, and some of the other initiatives that we're rolling out.
Well, so much to unpack there, and definitely we're still tracking the growth of artificial intelligence at this point. Hopefully it doesn't take over our lives.
No, it won't.
And we're able to control it. Thank you so much. It was great having this conversation with you, Justina Nnam Oha, the CEO of Digital Equity Africa. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
All right, after the break, I will look at the new oil. That's data. Then we'll find out what's playing out with the markets that we track. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.